Welcome to the Who's Left podcast, a show about Indiana politics, history, and culture from the unapologetic perspective of the social democratic left. My name is Scott Aaron Rogers, and I'm recording from Bloomington, where it's been far too long since we've had a traditional interview episode. Let's correct that. Since November's election, and even more so since Trump's January inauguration, Democrats in Washington have struggled to respond. Faced with a daily onslaught of illegal executive overreach, the highest levels of Democratic leadership have been unable to coalesce around a coherent message or strategy. Some old guard consultant types want Democrats to play possum, letting the Trump regime crash the economy and shred the Constitution, thinking they can sweep back into power in the next election. Fine idea if you can withstand the collapse, if your basic rights and freedoms don't come under threat, and if we even have free and fair elections going forward. Some, but far too few, of their party mates are building a real opposition. Here in the Hoosier State, Indiana Democrats face a similar dynamic. From city councils to state party headquarters, a faction of establishment leaders stifle internal dissent, chase an imaginary center while alienating their base, and freeze out new people with new ideas. My guest today is someone who has clashed with the party repeatedly while trying to push Democrats in Indianapolis and Marion County to live up to their own stated values. Clif Marsiglio is an educator, activist, and community advocate. By training, Clif is a mental health clinician with a master's degree in community psychology. He is passionate about public safety, sitting on the board of directors for both NESCO, the Near East Side Community Organization, and the Citizens Alliance for Public Safety, CAPS, where he has sought to repair the relationship between the community and Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department. Additionally, he is the president of the Quality of Life Public Safety Community Action Team and a partner with Overdose Lifeline, focusing on harm reduction strategies. In our conversation, we'll talk about scandal and dysfunction in the Circle City's mayor's office, the insular culture of establishment elites, and the way this affects the whole state. Then, we'll zoom out to look at Democrats on the national level, their disjointed response to Trump's address to a joint session of Congress, and the failure of leadership that produced such feeble pushback. We'll conclude by looking at a high profile Democratic leader and his insidious effort to boost his national profile by sacrificing one particularly marginalized group. Before we get to my discussion with Clif, though, I'd like to take a minute to thank you for all your support, for liking and sharing on social media, for forwarding our articles and podcast episodes, for commenting, leaving reviews, and providing feedback, and especially for the financial support paid subscriptions provide. Your contributions have helped me make meaningful connections with fascinating people from across Indiana and beyond. We are building a network of Hoosiers dedicated to making this state and its government work for all of us, not just the elite few. I would like to dedicate my full time to you, this community, and Indiana's future, but I need your financial support to do so. All I'm asking is $5 a month or $50 a year to help me write more, research more, organize more, and keep improving Who's Left. Improvements like our own website, where it's now much easier to find us. Visit who'sleft.us for all of our articles, episodes, archives, and again, please consider a paid subscription while you're there. We're also on Facebook, Blue Sky, YouTube, and TikTok at Who's Left, and I'm still on Instagram, Threads, and Twitter at ScottRodge78 and ScottRodge78 at Hoosier.social on Mastodon. Tell the others. Let's build a radically democratic Indiana together. Thanks again. Now, here's my conversation with Clif Marsiglio. Clif Marsiglio, welcome officially to the Who's Left podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be here. And I'm hoping to give you the most boring podcast you've had ever.
I don't think you got it in you, Cliff. So, all right. Over the last week, week and a half, frankly, ever since the election in November, um, Democrats have really been struggling to know how to respond, first to their loss, and now to the actual reality of a Trump administration at the national level and a Braun Beckwith administration here in Indiana. And I think in many ways the problem begins right at home on the local level. And nowhere in Indiana is the Democratic Party more egregiously uh, disorganized, unprepared, not up to the moment. It's right there in the Circle City. Cliff, am I off base there?
No, every bit of shit going on that's happening to our state centers here, if not because of our state house. Our city council is trying to one up everyone.
Yeah, yeah. We really need to understand, I think, in this moment that the old simple red blue R bad D good way of looking at things, if it was ever even partially uh, a correct frame, it is certainly not the correct frame.
No, and honestly, it's interesting because at the city level, I often get more out of my Republican friends than I do my Democratic folks who should be agreeing with me on 99% of the items. I can call up probably half the Republicans on my city council and get them to answer the phone and talk to me for a half hour, 45 minutes and come up with something constructive. If I want to do this with a Democrat, I'm going to be sitting after the city council meeting getting poked in the chest because I want one less person killed on the streets.
Yeah, and this is in many ways, I think, endemic to big cities in this country at large, especially big cities in red states where, you're talking about our state house where Republicans have, with precision, gerrymandered themselves into an almost insurmountable supermajority. So that what that leaves us is these handful of Democratic, districts, municipalities, places where the Republicans will concede they're going to lose, and they pack all the Democrats into that one spot, and that leaves you with uncontested races in those places as well. So gerrymandering is not good for anybody.
No, I don't. What did I read? Statewide, 68% of the races are uncontested, or yeah,
Hmm.
uncontested. I don't know if that's the correct statement, but it sure feels like it. Too many people have come to me and said, "Well, I am not going to run because it takes up too much time, too much energy. Just put your name on the ballot." I've had runs for the state house or for where I've used no money at all. It was a 3-week race. No money, just honestly talking to people and getting my message out. That's all people want to hear. If if Democrats aren't willing to put their name out, if they're not willing to put their voice out, of course people are going to vote for the Republican because they actually stepped up. I want to see people statewide saying, you know what, there's an uncontested race. Am I the perfect person for this? No. God, no. I spend so much time around politicians. If people only knew how much of a shit show most of these politicians were, there's I'm a shit show. And I look at some of these people and I think to myself, how am I so much more put together than these people are when I'm talking to people who I I don't even know where to start without sounding a little insulting to people's intelligence. I have people who the best thing they've ever done in their life was Uber telling me about wetlands, dismissing my partner who is a wetland scientist speaking directly to me because I'm the man. They don't want to hear from the actual scientist. They want to argue with me, who frankly has the same amount of knowledge that the former Uber driver slash congressman has. And I say this as somebody who did 5 years of Uber. I enjoyed it. It was fun.
Right.
Yeah.
So, well, let's look right in Marion County, in Indianapolis. The ick goes all the way to the top, right? The mayor's office, Joe Hogsett, now in his third term,
Stumbling Joe.
talking about a fourth, low key, I hear, when he promised two max. But that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about the way he actually runs the city. Now, you said Stumbling Joe. I don't wanna talk about things I don't know, but
All I'm saying is sometimes he's not as light on his feet as he thinks he is. No other statement being implied there.
there have been there's been talk in social media of Hogset making public appearances while likely under the influence of some substance or another.
Wait, was that what was going on? Because I hadn't heard about that. Did that end up in a national news with Mike Epps, written by Aaron Wren on Politico? Because I've heard nothing about this. According to, again, this is going to be the most boring interview you've ever had. I know nothing about this. This is a first time thing that you're telling me. I just know that he's not light on his feet.
And, and listen, all that aside, um, the actual conduct within his office does not reflect well on him or the city. One of his top lieutenants, Thomas Cook, there was a big scandal about his behavior last summer. Came out there were other people in city departments that have a sexual harassment problem, let's say, and um, Hogset never really addressed the issue head on. He sort of danced on it in his or danced around it in his what's the word I'm looking for? Delicate, graceful way.
Yes, yes. This delicate. It seems endemic. We've had three, probably four of his top lieutenants, three or four people that he handpicked to run different agencies who have done egregious things. I have heard from friends who have seen these egregious things up close. I've had friends talk to me about these 3 years ago, and I tried to get the attention of quite a few people who decided the only reason they were going to ever pull it out was if they thought that they could convince the mayor to drop out so they could get an easy in. The only reason that they even cared what was going on was, is this another footstep for, or is this another step up for me?
Yeah, does this suit me politically? Does this help me get where I want to go? Not is this what's best for the people of Indianapolis?
I mean, I have been forwarded so many messages from women in the Hogsett administration over the years. I have been told about his, you know what? This is neither here or there. I said this is going to be boring. So I will stick to what is public. What is public is there's a lot of dick pics being sent by his top lieutenants.
Uh, well, that again, not great, not great, Bob. And then apparently this is just recently, um, the Hogshead administration is hiring a former city attorney to look into the problem. It's like hiring the guy who was part of the problem to say, there's no problem here. At least that's what it looks like to me, and paying him $650 an hour to do so.
Well, on the city council itself, it looks like the person investigating is actually married to one of Joe's biggest supporters. The problem I have with a lot of this is there has been evidence. It's been reported in the newspapers. I'm not the one reporting it in the newspapers. It is all third party. Well, it's first person who is reporting it, and it's there. We know that Thomas Cook has admitted to some of his fallible, or he's admitted to being fallible for a lot of this. He's also claimed that this was consensual. You know what? I work at a university. There, if I were to ever even look at a student in a way that he has claimed was consensual, I would have been fired. It's as simple as that. You don't go after your underlings. It doesn't matter if it's consensual or not. Off limits. It's not even a hard topic to think about. We have folks from other various agencies. We had one agency that two of their top lieutenants left within weeks of each other, one replacing another, only to leave themselves because, again, sending inappropriate photos to women, uh, making inappropriate comments. There have been more than that that I have heard that since I do not have permission of the people to speak on, I am not going to speak on. Um, this is one of the hardest things that's been for me over the last few years of hearing about this is not being able to speak as clearly as I could about the issues because even what's in the newspapers as today, none of the people who have been in the newspapers have been the sources of the information that I've gotten. We make it sound like there were maybe two or three women.
Hmm.
I've heard at least seven.
Yeah,
And
well, yeah, you can understand. Like a lot of people don't want to have to go through that public process, and it's understandable. It's a lot. It's got to be trying, and the women who have spoken up have been incredibly brave in doing so. But it's not for everybody.
in my day job, I've had to investigate these sorts of things. I've had to, my background is, my background is community psychology. I do a lot of incremental improvement for my institution. And I do a lot of focus groups. And during focus groups, I hear things. Let's just say the things that I've heard, the people involved did not stay more than a couple weeks after we had confirmation. Joe Hogsett brought back Thomas Cook 3 times. What did they think he was going to just get it out of his system? Oh, he hit on these young women
He's learned his
before.
lesson, right? He's a good guy.
Yeah, well, maybe he's just going to keep it in his pants this time. And I know it's coming off as flippant, but that's seriously how I feel the mayor is looking at this. The mayor is not on all the time. He is not engaged. He does not know what's going on in his office. The most charitable thing that I could say about him is he just didn't understand what was going on because he was preoccupied by his own personal foibles.
Yeah.
And that's
Well,
that's the
well
most
put. Yeah.
charitable thing.
Very, very well. Yeah. Well said. Well, let's move, down the hall to another citywide elected official, and that is the city auditor, Mila Eldridge, who also happens to be the vice chair of the state party, at least for the rest of this week until the reorganization. But also is the chair and recently reelected chair of the Marion County Democratic Party. Um, Now, I don't know. That's a lot of hats. No matter who you are, no matter how talented you are, I don't know. It seems like a lot of hats. I struggle to wear one.
Yeah, that's I see the Marion County Democratic Party and we feel disorganized. And I'm going to say this up front. Mila seems like an amazing woman. Every time I've talked to her, she's been gracious. She's been amazing. I don't think there's enough of her to do the job. And I don't think she's got the vision to do the job. It feels like our Marion County Democrats are running like a 30,000 population city. It reminds me of growing up in Richmond, Indiana, and my parents going to the Democratic Club where most of the people were drunk. And that was most of what they did was drink and talk sports. That's it felt more like growing up in the Democratic clubs, it felt more that politics was a sport, a team sport,
Yeah.
than it
Yeah.
was actually caring about the people we are trying to help. And that's how it feels with the Marion County Democratic Party. It does not feel like we are the shining beacon of Indiana. We have 890,000 people within our borders.
Yeah.
What is it? We're the is it the 12th, the 14th largest city in the US?
Yeah.
Our city alone, if we could break the 60% mark of getting people to actually vote, we would change statewide elections. We
Yes.
would see we would
Yes.
see we would see maybe we wouldn't see a politician that I would love, but we would see more Evan Bayes. Evan Bayh was a fine Democrat. He wasn't the kind of Democrat that I crave, but he was a fine Democrat that even the people who disagreed with him could say, you know what, I would still like to get a beer with that man, and
And-
we could discuss this in a peaceful way.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like we might not as leftists we might not agree with neoliberal policies, but like he didn't actively go about trying to hurt Hoosiers, which is
No,
I think what Mike Braun is doing.
I mean, every time I see anything from Mike Braun, it just feels like his whole job is tearing down the system, taking away safety nets from the most vulnerable. It, I've sat next to him several times where he didn't even realize I was there. Uh, Most recently was February of last year when I got to see Joe Hogsett give him the hot stone massage treatment, saying, you're gonna make a great governor, Mike." This was nearly a year before the election,
Yeah.
sitting there at Kochek Coffee, 5 feet from him, and I walk over and I extend my hand. I'm like, "Joe, you already know me. Mike, I'm Cliff." And he's like, "I know who you are." And it's like I've sat next to the man several times and I've heard him speak. There is nothing that's coming out of his mouth that seems like he cares about our state.
No,
He just
none
wants to run an
whatsoever.
auto parts store that he can sell he can sell his aftermarket parts that he gets from China, all the
Mhm.
while screaming about the Chinese.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, let before we go off on the Mike Braun tangent, and that's a whole other show, we could go on him all day long. Um, to back to the Marion County Democrats and the kind of disorganization we see in the party. Reorg was not this past weekend here as we're recording on Tuesday, March 11th, but the weekend before on the 1st. And then there was a debate or a forum or something, maybe a couple days before that.
Yes, at the Julia Carson Center, we had a. It wasn't supposed to be a debate. It was supposed to be a meeting of minds. And again, honestly, I like all three chair candidates. I thought one clearly was better than the other two by and far, but I like both. I like all three of them as people. I need to say that before I go off on my little rants because I don't think people will understand. I do like these people.
Yeah.
We need to get our
Good
shit down.
people, lovely people with good intentions can be the wrong person for the job or the wrong person for the moment. It is not a personal attack.
We we need to get our shit together. We need to put our shit in a bag. We need to tie that bag up. We need to throw that bag away. We need to get our shit together. That's what we need to do. And some of these debates, I thought the sheriff was going to come out in the middle of the room to break us up because there was arguing, there was screaming, there were people getting up out of their chairs, and for once I thought to myself, I'm not the one in the middle of all this.
This is
I
what this looks like from over here?
I thought to myself, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna sit over here. My partner just kind of patted me on the my lap and said, you know what? Keep doing what you're doing. Um, I went as the debate was going on. I remember seeing a good friend of mine looking a little dismayed. We both got up, we hugged in the middle of the room, just like, nope, we're on both sides of the debate. However, we're both going to say, you know what, this is not going to be here. Um, it was not well organized. And you know what? Passions fly. Part of me says, you know what? I love the passion.
Mhm.
I Where was this passion before? Where was this passion while we were fighting for Kamala Harris? Where was this passion when we were trying to get Jennifer McCormick as governor? Jennifer McCormick was not my favorite choice. I'm sure she would say she didn't think she was my favorite choice as well. However, I voted for her and I voted for her enthusiastically. She was my candidate. I want to see us have, in the end, I want to see all these people with their passions. I want to see them with their anger directed out towards the people we were actually fighting. And
Yes.
the greatest thing about this was I know that there's a fight in these people. That's what I saw. I saw a fight and I saw people willing to get up out of their seats and get in people's faces. This is what our party needs. Our party needs excitement. Our party needs people to say, I'm sick of the status quo. It needs to change. And at the end of the day, I I was calling some of the people who were involved with this and I said, look, we need to get our shit together. Let's have a sit down. Let's talk. That has not happened yet, but I am convinced that given a few more weeks, we're going to get it together because as much as we're fighting internally, we need to take that battle out.
Yeah, and the reorganization, the actual vote that Saturday the 1st, I understand didn't go a whole lot better. I mean, at least it wasn't, nearly coming to fisticuffs, but it was just poorly run.
It was poorly run. And before I even start anything, Milo won what by 60%. She
First
got
ballot,
the
yeah.
first ballot, which means that the other two candidates split that 40 extra percent each. I realized before I even walked up to see my numbers, I was like, you know what? I'm done. I realized this was this was a vote for the establishment, and I am not the establishment. I was fine losing. I didn't come in last. I also didn't come in first. So given that, I I saw the numbers and I realized I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna defer to my favorite candidate who actually has been coming to the forums, who's been in the community, who contributes not just as a party insider, but somebody who's actually a part of the part of the community. And this is one of the things that I passionately get upset with Democrats. We can't just be in the clubhouses. We have to be on the streets. We have to be making people's lives
Yeah, yeah.
improved. So I put my name behind Alex Rollo. Alex is one of those people. And it did not come out the way it should have been. What should have been a 4-hour meeting ended up 9 hours by the end of the day.
Oh my
Uh,
god.
we had
For the record, Monroe County was in and out in a clean hour and a half, but none of our races were contested.
well, and honestly, the contested race should have been a two vote because we decided the remaining candidates decided we are going to endorse one candidate. Those
Mhm.
of us who dropped out, who said, you know what, I don't see a path to victory no matter how many times this is run, we endorsed the candidate. And then we revoted again and we left all the candidates on the second time. We did
Yeah, I
not take
understood
it.
there were, like, 5 originally, right?
Correct.
And then there were supposed it was supposed to have been down to 2 on that
Correct.
second ballot, but there were 3 left on the ballot by
Oh no,
mistake or intentionally or
I
but it was but everybody that was,
I know there were at least
yeah.
four. I, I did not see my name counted, but I did hear people who were not in the room to hear the endorsement tell me that they said, "Look, we didn't realize you dropped out." I'm like, "Yeah, I dropped out." I don't know if I had any votes the second time. I hope I didn't. I hope my people listened to me and didn't. But between the other two, between the two candidates who had dropped off, there was something like 22 votes. The candidate who won by 12 votes. Those 22 votes would have all come to the
Mm,
candidate at the end, which means and I was the first to challenge this. I
yeah.
right after I put my vote in, I said this doesn't look right. I asked somebody a question. I said, "Did you see any names marked off anywhere?" And they said, "Nope." I'm like, so I went to the head of the rules committee and I said, "Look, something's going on." And I was dismissed immediately. He said, "You know what?
Mm,
It's fine." I was like, "No, this is wrong." I had to go speak with the several of the other candidates who also said this was not fine. Senator Hunley actually put in a challenge for us. There were probably 4 challenges filed, and we were told take it to the state. The state will handle it. We before the challenges were even discussed, they were taking down the voting booths.
Wow. Wow. That does not sound like democracy to me.
No.
So I don't know. I see a theme kind of beginning to develop where, and you were talking about it like back home in Richmond. It's a good old boys club, and hey, we're Democrats, we're progressive. There's women in the good old boys club now, but it's still a big club, and a little fiefdom. You get to have a title next to your name, but are you actually like doing the thing for your people? And so often it doesn't look like they are. Now, look, there's a lot of jurisdictions in Indiana where Democrats don't have any actual power, and you might be the party chair or some little county somewhere, and maybe it makes a difference, maybe it doesn't. I mean, it's bad to stifle dissent and democracy wherever you are, but the stakes are a lot lower. In Indianapolis, where Democrats actually have like real power that they can exercise, if they're wasting their time engaging in like petty feuds and backslapping and fundraising and not actually like making people's lives better, what are you even doing in the game, man? You're in the wrong business.
Yeah, it's the biggest problem I see is the old boys club or the old girls club as it is. Um, it's the same thing. Folks are more interested in popularity contests than they are people who can actually do the job. One of the reasons I ran for secretary of Marion County Democratic Club was it was a job that I looked at my skill set. I said, look, I have a forward thinking skill set. I have technology background. I have data background. God, I sold the first AI product for Indiana University back in 2000. That's my background. I'm the nerd. I looked at my skill set and I said, you know what? I need to I want to give it all to a position that is skilled in what I'm doing. Instead, we turned it into a popularity contest. It wasn't
Yeah.
about people's skill sets. And I will say, three of us had an amazing skill set that I would. There were three of us that we've gotten to be really good friends. We've said, look, we will work with each other. Um, and we are planning to work with each other on projects because I think they have the same forward looking skill set. We're focusing on popularity. We're not focusing on skills based elections.
Yeah, yeah. It and so much of that there's that gatekeeping involved. When you get there, you don't want to leave, even if you're not best suited for the job
Oh, the several of the forums we had half-hour conversations about slating and how
anymore.
slating was amazing, and slating was the only thing we needed to do to raise money. Just just give the party $5,000 just to run, because you know what that's going to encourage the PTA mom who is struggling to feed her kids to join the city council. That's going to
Yeah,
encourage the union garbage man who says, "You know what? I want to make a difference. Oh, wait, I need $5,000 just to participate in democracy."
yeah. It's
We
gross. It's a barrier to entry for working people who have expertise in have a skill set of like understanding what life is like for real people.
Yeah.
not for the political class who is completely out of touch.
Yeah.
Speaking of, let's zoom out and talk about the National Democratic Party this past week, who has also just shown their ass in embarrassing fashion. So excuse me, Tuesday, we watched Trump's joint address to Congress, with all the trappings of a State of the Union without it actually being a State of the Union address. But so a lot of prominent Democrats boycotted it, which, okay, fine. That's, one way to take a stand, I guess. But in an attention economy, I don't know if that's the best option. Um, of those who did attend, there was no real coordination to respond to Trump's lies and attacks and obfuscation and just Trump stuff. A lot of the women wore pink, performative, gesture. Couldn't even get their shades to match. There were some fuchsias and there were some Peptos. Like, if you're going to do it right.
Did
A lot of the Democrats.
Did Nancy Pelosi put on her Kente hat again?
Yeah, I don't remember what Pelosi was wearing at this past event. But her chosen successor, Hakeem Jeffries, really um told Democrats ahead of time to just to sit there, to be polite and not show any form of protest.
Thoughts and
Now,
prayers.
yeah, some held signs that said like lies or false or Musk steal. Again, they were itty bitty. It looked like they were at an auction where the future of democracy is up for sale. And
It isn't.
yeah, yeah, right.
We're
Oh, it it,
bidding
it
way
it
too
it
low
is not
for
for
it.
sale. It has already been sold to the highest bidder.
We need some
Um,
oligarchs on our side.
oh well, we have a few, but um,
Soros
not
needs to
not.
get off his ass and give us more money. He needs to be paying us
I'm still waiting on my
protesters.
Antifa check, Cliff. I still am waiting on my Antifa check.
I
Yeah,
cashed mine 2 months ago. I don't know what's
Soros
going
owes
on
me.
with you.
I'm gonna talk to Antifa HR. But but seriously, little little paddles, just not up to the moment. One Democrat, one did a thing I think that was necessary and took the attention, made a stand with real consequences. He got escorted out by the sergeant at arms, and this is Texas Representative Al Green, who yelled at Trump, said, "You do not have a mandate to cut Medicaid," and he does not. Green is correct there, and this is a 78-year-old man with a cane got up and shook his cane at Trump in front of the country and everybody, and little weasel ass Mike Johnson, gavelled the session and had the sergeant at arms come out and remove him, and a couple Democrats like quietly walked out after him. I don't think they understand the moment we're in right now. And it should not be a surprise that Al Green, a black man from the South, who's old enough to have seen some shit, was the one man to step up.
Yeah, I need to see men like me stepping up. If I goddamn white people, just get off your ass and do something. I
I
you know,
wanted to see another, and I broadcast this in real time. I was hanging out with Brandon Dothager, and we watched this address and live streamed it in real time, and we were calling for next man up. All right, after Green got kicked out, I want another Democrat and another Democrat to do the same thing again and again and again if they need to, and do not let Trump get a word in edgewise. And they didn't. They were not up to the moment. And then, like, in the days after, it only got worse, right? Because the House voted to censure Green, and 10 Democrats joined all of the Republicans in voting for the censure. I don't think these folks should be in good standing with the party anymore. Period.
No. I This is the whole thoughts and prayers wing of the party, the pull your pants up, let's be respectable. You know, Donald Trump is a abhorrent man. He is, if we are not speaking the same language that he is, louder, calling out what he is doing graphically, and we're not going to get anywhere by being polite.
We're 10
Every
years into this now. Yeah, like we know we're not going to decorum ourselves out of this. Trump is a master at one thing, and it is capturing attention. And he's very good at that. And that is why he has been successful in politics for these last 10 years.
And the one good thing I will say about him is he says what he's going to do and then he does it. I wish our side would do that shit. I waited for the last 4 years for Biden to do anything. Oh, the Supreme Court doesn't allow us to do it. What does Trump do? It's like Supreme Court doesn't allow it. I'm going to do it anyways. Well, there's a reason people have voted for him. I did not vote for him. I think he is a horrible man. But people see somebody actually doing something, see somebody who's speaking commonly to the
Mm-hmm.
ears of the common man, not thinking twice about, is this even correct what I'm saying? We need to speak up, we need to speak loudly, we need to speak clearly, and we actually need to get off our ass and do something. People are waiting for us to do something. And we had
Mm-hmm.
one person get up during the State of the Union. Honestly, I didn't watch it. I was disgusted. I didn't think there was going to be anything that I heard during that State of the Union that was going to make me any less angry with the state of the nation than I am today.
Well, yeah, it certainly made me more angry uh, watching it. But again, not because of Trump. I mean, we know what we're getting with him. Trump is Trump. He plays the role, and he's playing a role. The man's an entertainer. He's playing a role of somebody who speaks the common man's language and identifies that the system is rigged, and it is, right?
He's rigged
But
it.
he's one of the people who has benefited from and participated in the rigging. He's a master con man. It is okay to admit, America, that we've been conned by a con man. And there's still time, not a whole lot, but there's still time, I think, to get out if our leaders, the people who are in power now, exercise what they have. um I want to talk about one of those leaders and somebody who's positioning himself to maybe be the standard bearer of the Democratic Party, and take on, I don't know, the inheritor to MAGA, Don Jr., JD Vance, the old man himself again if they have their way. But uh, the man I'm speaking of is California Governor Gavin Newsom, who does the thing that all white men do when they see a problem and they need to and they want to solve it. He started a podcast, and one of his first guests, maybe his first guest at all, this past week, was Charlie fucking Kirk. Now, I don't know what you know about Charlie Kirk, Cliff, but
I know he thinks his wife or his sister's hot. That's
no, it's
all
Ben
I know.
Shapiro whose sister is hot.
Well, maybe Ben or maybe Charlie Kirk thinks she is too. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't,
I
I don't know, but
I
he's a
they
yes.
all these white podcasters look the same. I cannot tell a single one apart.
Hey, buddy. Um, so Kirk is the founder, the head of Turning Point USA, which is a one of these organizations that's funded by Republican dark money, but made to look like it's some sort of grassroots thing. It's an astroturf organization for recruiting young conservatives on college campuses. So that's his shtick. That's where he's come from, and he's one of the biggest influencers on the right now, and he's a little Nazi. And you know, Gavin Newsom deciding to meet people where they're at, has Kirk on his podcast and gives a fascist a platform, and then has the audacity to like say I fully agree with him on at least one issue. But I don't think you ever want to be on camera saying I wholly agree with you with a Nazi. Now, the issue that we speak of was the trans girls in sports thing, which we're still on, and it boggles my mind. Number one, that this issue gets so much traction because I mean, you can count the number of trans athletes playing sports at the high school level or above in the dozens, you know. And then
I'm still wondering if I would have been a better soccer player when I was 16 if I would have gone through 4 years of hormone therapy. If I would have just gotten that estrogen, could I have been a better soccer player? Could I have gone to the top of the women's league? Could I have made it to the women's World Cup?
it is so dumb that um Democrats give this thing any credence, and they play right along. By agreeing and conspiring and sharing stages with these disgusting people. You can stand up for trans people and not offend like wide swaths of Americans. Like I don't know why we assume we have to throw a vulnerable group under the bus just because maybe the majority doesn't quite understand. You know, maybe they're not there yet.
You know what? I will say this for the vast majority of the people out there. I don't understand what it's like being trans. That's probably why I'm not trans. This is what people have a hard time understanding is you don't have to understand what's going on in somebody's body to say, you know what, it's not my body. I don't need to have an opinion about it.
Yeah. And these things can be handled by sanctioning bodies. You treat everybody individually on a case by case basis. There, we're not still talking about it. Can we talk about how billionaires have taken over the entire economy and now the entire government? Right? Like, it is so obviously a cudgel. It is so obviously a trap, and so many Democrats just walk right into it.
I, I have no idea why anybody needs to talk about the 20 trans women in sports.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's it's moronic. It's I want to talk about the thousands of trans kids who being allowed to live their best lives means that they're not going to try to commit suicide. Back when I was doing grad school and I was studying to be a therapist, we realized if you talk to a trans teen, you could be guaranteed that they tried to take their life once, twice, multiple times, and the only reason they are still here is because they did not succeed. I don't care about the 20 trans women who are in sports. I care about the thousands of trans kids who just want to live their fucking lives.
yeah. And I don't know why Democrats in power with platforms can't just say that, and they think they have to go along. And you can't keep chasing these people to the right without giving up everything we're supposed to stand for.
Yeah, and I've seen that here on the Indiana stage. I ran for lieutenant governor last year because I made a statement that I said, you know what, if we're going to put in a Republican or even a Republican light candidate, I'll put my name in there. Three other candidates wanted to put their names in there. Far, 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 far better people than I will ever be. I wish I could name them. I have been asked not to name them by the candidates because they were threatened and said, you have a long career ahead of you. We purposely chose a lieutenant governor candidate who was anti LGBTQ, who made horrible statements that I understand they came from a time that we were all saying things a little bit
Mm-hmm.
off. But
Oh yeah, I grew up in the
uh,
'90s. I said things I regret now. My
I,
God.
I I've said things I regret last week, but not things like that. Any of my friends will tell you I say things I regret, and the hope is we're a better person tomorrow than we are today. However, I see candidates here in Indiana. There was a candidate who was running for Marion County Democratic Party who is running for vice chair, and we have a parity rule in Indiana or within the Democrats in Indiana
It's
saying,
parody, Parity, not Ody. Yes.
yes.
The
So
parody is not part of the rules, but it happens anyway. Yes.
well, if you're if the chair elected is a woman, you must pick a man or quote unquote from the rules committee a non-binary person
Mm-hmm.
and vice versa. If if the chair is a non-binary person, you could they say, well, the vice chair cannot be a non-binary person too. It has to be one of the other genders. And I am going to be called out for getting it wrong because there are not just three genders, male, female, and non-binary, but that is how the Democratic Party has codified it. Even then, even with these rules in place, at our Marion County Democratic Party reorg, we we had one candidate who is decidedly non-binary, has lived as non-binary openly for several years, told she can't run, she's a woman. And there was no debate about it. And I had I had to feel I made the post defending this candidate, and I had to hear from multiple people throughout the state saying, this is why the Republicans are going to win because they don't play this gender bullshit. These are
Mm,
people from our own party. How are we going to say it, it dismays me that the most leftward state in the nation has a governor who agrees with Charlie Kirk on trans issues. So it shouldn't make me upset that Indiana is doing the same thing, but it is because we need to be better than this. We need to treat people. If somebody comes to me and says I'm non-binary, I may not know what that means. I'm going to accept it for what it is. Nobody's going to say they're non-binary just because it gets them elected,
right.
or
Right.
it's not going to get them on a sports team.
Right. These people are so dumb they think Joanna Man was a documentary.
I had completely forgot about that. That was only one step lower than White Girls, which I
White Chicks is a
White
classic.
Chicks. You
Yeah.
know what?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the one Wayans film that I will not get behind. It Nope. I love me some Damon Wayans. Not gonna do it.
Should be more open minded. Um,
You and me should do a we you and me should do a group watching of Soul Man then.
oh my god. Is that the one from the 80s that I'm
Yes.
thinking of with yeah, that was what the last of the blackface movies basically, right?
I believe it was the last blackface movie. And with it's
Yeah, in my
2025 and
lifetime. Yeah.
they may be coming back. Who knows? I remember seeing what was it? C. Thomas Howell. I remember seeing that film on UHF, whatever some channel 53 that you had to turn to the clicky dials.
Now we're losing the kids now, Cliff.
Yeah, and, and I remember
No, no, I feel you.
it was. I feel like this is what our party is treating trans people as. They're treating them as a joke, as something. We're
Hmm.
at best we're othering them. At at worst we're treating them as a joke or a fraud.
Yeah, these
And
people are going to look really stupid in 50 years if we still have history.
yeah, yeah.
All right. So listen, well, to get to the point where maybe we still have history books that tell the truth in 50 years. Um, and again, assuming that we still live in a semi-democratic two-party country, the one of the most effective ways to take on the Trump and the MAGA Republicans is going to be through the Democratic Party. So we need it to get its shit together. And this collaborating with fascists, throwing trans people under the bus, decoruming our way, right along with these folks as they destroy everything we hold dear. As we poo poo the people who are actually fighting and tell them to sit down and be polite, those things are not going to work anymore.
I I've been using this quote since the gubernatorial election. We lose four progressives, four leftists, four any of the people who've been left out. The DSA, the folks who call themselves the Communist Party of like I find
Or just regular people who don't think
just
that politicians of any stripe work for them,
yeah,
right?
and they sit down all the while we're trying to reach across the aisle. I will reach across the aisle for individual items citywide. I'm not reaching about across the aisle to say, come join my party. I don't want any Republican in my party. I don't care if the leopards ate your face. I don't want you. Do the work, maybe figure out what you did wrong. In a few years, we can take your advice, but we're not here to appease you. We're not here to have your Mitch Daniels
Mhm.
opinions. We don't care. We should not be going after the Mitch Daniels Republicans who seem a little bit more sane. We need to be going after the farmers who say, you know what, I can't fix my tractor because right to repair laws. We need to
Mhm.
be going after the kids who are marching after school, who are leading protests. We need I I could go on and it's we're losing our base.
We have to stand for something.
It it's just made me so many times. I'm a candidate who loves losing races. I'm I'm a candidate who says I tell people the truth, and I hear people on our side get angry that I tell them the truth, only for them to come to me after the election, after they say, you know what, maybe you were right. May, what can we talk about this in private? I don't want your name anywhere, but I want to talk about you in private. We need to stand up publicly for our values.
Mhm.
We trade our values away before we're before they're even on the table.
Yeah. In cities, you trade them away to real estate developers or, stadium builders or charter schools or whatever it is because you think that's what you got to do to win. And that bill comes due, and it's the people that
It
wind up
only
paying
take
it.
it only takes $500 to sway a counselor to vote for a charter school.
Well, Cliff, let's bring this thing home. What do we need to take away from this conversation today? What do Democrats need to do to basically inspire people to mass action? Because that is what we need now.
We need our leaders to actually get off their ass. We need our leaders to realize the civil rights movement had people going to jail because they believed in their rights. We again, we censure people for speaking out against the most egregious harm to our nation we've seen in any of our lifetimes. We are inviting the same people in that we fought against in World War II to take
Mhm.
over our country from within. I My partner's already told me there's $5,000 waiting for me in a bank account if I need bailed out. She's realized that it's there. And if our society goes where it's supposed to go, I may need bailed out sooner than later. We need people who stand up. We need people who say, this is our value, and we have a line in the sand. And if that line gets crossed, we're going to be doing some shit.
And it's got to be people like, again, like us. We're a couple of middle-aged white guys, like we're not like swimming in money, but like we're relatively comfortable.
Yeah.
We have to be willing to get uncomfortable. And people who are far more comfortable than us need to be
I
willing to get a little uncomfortable.
I'm sick of seeing protests where it's women, where it's LGBTQ, where it's black folks, and then not a single person who looks like us. People who look like us should be leading these protests saying, you know what, I'm willing to take one for the team. I led a
Yeah.
rally recently down the streets of Indianapolis where people were afraid to take the street. And I'm like, we're taking the street, we're blocking the street. Granted, it was a 12-block protest. The police shouted at me, get back on the street. And I'm like, what you gonna do? Um, and you know what? That is not even the biggest, that is one of the weakest protests I've been at. We need to be willing to put ourselves at harm. We need to be putting ourselves at risk for the people we care about.
Yeah.
We should not be expecting the people who are being harmed to do all the work while we sit and cheer from the sidewalk.
Exactly. Exactly. The, the folks that have always led the resistance, like, shouldn't have to keep doing this.
Yeah. It's
All right. Well, I hate to leave things on such a dire note, Cliff, but it's about that time. So, thank you. Appreciate you being here. Glad we got to do this for real.
good luck beeping me throughout this. I probably have more
We,
F bombs than your standard guest. Um, good luck with continuity because my ADHD is all over the place. I hope to see this cut in a dozen ways, fitting all the pieces together. This was a pleasure being here. Thank you.
we're gonna give it to the people straight, Cliff. I ain't got time for all that.
Yeah,
Love having you here,
thank you.
Cliff Marsiglio, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you once again. That was Indianapolis activist, organizer, and rabble rouser Cliff Marsiglio. I've seen a meme going around the last several days, originally from 2022, which even caught a mention in Will Bunch's latest Philadelphia Inquirer column. It says, Republicans are the mass shooter, and Democrats are the Uvalde cops. And I don't know if I've heard a more gruesome, yet accurate, metaphor to summarize our current situation. I'm sure there are a lot of good elected Democrats working at all levels of government to stop the authoritarian onslaught. And there must be countless others with their hearts in the right places whose worldviews and strategies were formed in a completely different time. But far too many so called leaders, especially as you move up in the party hierarchy, are unwilling to lay it on the line when the people actually need them. As MAGA fascists mow down our rights and freedoms while blowing massive holes in the social safety net, establishment Democrats say, well, I'm not going in there. I might get killed. Gotta look out for number one, right? To hell with the elderly, the disabled, the persecuted. Wrong. We hired you to serve and protect. You said you would fight for us, for democracy. Well, fight! If the Trump administration and their compliant red state cronies are the existential threat to the republic you say they are, then pull out all stops. Acts like Al Green's should be the bare minimum. And if you don't believe they pose that serious a threat, you are either lying to us, oblivious to the danger they do indeed pose, or both. Either are disqualified. So, Democrats, you have weapons, parliamentary, financial, media, at your disposal. Either run toward the danger and use them, or surrender them to people who will. What do you think? Let me know in the comments, or holler at me on social media, Facebook, Blue Sky, YouTube, and TikTok at Who's Left, and on most other social media sites at ScottRodge78. You can also email me at scott@whosleft.us. Thanks again to my guest Cliff Marsiglio, who you can find at cliffmars.com, that's one F, on most social media sites at Mayor Cliff, and on Substack, where he writes the Clif Marsiglio newsletter. And thank you for listening. If you can, head on over to whosleft.us and help support this project with a paid subscription. Again, hit me up on social media with your feedback, tips, ideas, and concerns. Please forward the show to a friend and have them forward it to another friend. Let's keep building this project and a truly democratic state, one conversation at a time. Until the next one, this has been the Who's Left podcast. I'm Scott Aaron Rogers. Love each other, Indiana.